So next in my series of pointing out journalists and their insane lies and how they won't change and how they're just mouthpieces for the deep state and the establishment Democratic Party, we come to Morning Joe with Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, who I believe are married now. Now keep in mind, Joe Scarborough until Trump was supposedly a Republican. Let's see, are they going to have a mea culpa for pushing this Russia collusion narrative? Are they going to have some humility and say, we're sorry we got this story wrong? Are they going to at least defend why they thought they had the story right? Or anything like that? Let's see how Joe and Mika here present things.
I was watching some news.
You shouldn't have done that.
I finally,
You watched the wrong news.
After watching some of the most ridiculous commentary,
It was.
I had enough, and I turned over for the first time in 2 years to American Masters, and I saw the incredible story. I didn't know it.
Oh, no.
Of Sammy Davis Jr.
Okay.
Just late to be watching that.
Don't realize it was a little late. I was a little worked up, though, because
Good for you. I guess that's relevant to something. I really like, watch throughout these clips. I just love Mika's. I'm holding my Starbucks. I'm just so much better than you. You tell him, Joe. You tell him how much better we are. You'll see what I mean. Let's let them go on.
the commentary from people who push the Seth Rich conspiracy murder, the commentary from people on journalism who've said some of the most vile things about women.
So when he's talking about the Seth Rich, I don't know who he's talking about specifically, but it's funny for them. He could push a narrative for 2 years that was wrong about Russia collusion to call our president basically a treasonous spy for Russia. He could push that uncritically without bringing anyone on either his show or his entire network that he works for to push back against this, even left-wing people that were talking about how this was clearly nonsense, instead relying on people that were former intel agents like Brennan or Clapper, things like that. Being uncritical, pushing this lie for 2 years, he has a problem with anyone that said, oh, this guy was murdered and there's still not solved, no one's been able to solve his murder and there was incredibly shady circumstance. Those people were terrible people, apparently. When he says people that said terrible things about women, I assume he's talking about Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson said some things on a comedy show years ago that could be construed as negative towards women. Yeah, whatever. That comes it comes off a little hollow to me. Why don't you go back and play your guitar a little more there, Joe? If you guys haven't seen that clip, it's absolutely hilarious. This guy, just another virtue signaling, I'm a big feminist. I don't like comedy or anyone who's ever said anything that could be considered a bad joke towards women. I'm so great. Tell him, Mika. Tell him how great I am. Yeah, sorry, dude. Let's hear what else he has to say.
Some of the most vile things about immigrants, some of the most vile things in defense of Donald Trump at all costs.
Yeah, again, I guess he's talking about people like Tucker who comments about things like illegal immigration. Now, I saw a clip earlier today where CNN was doing their own polls that showed that, guess what the biggest issue is in 2020 for voters that they're talking about right now? Immigration. See, this is the mainstream media, the establishment Democrats, and the intel community's stance on this. You can't be concerned about illegal immigration without it being, you're saying vile crap about immigrants. We constantly hear, oh, you're afraid of the brown menace. That's why you want to solve illegal immigration. We should just have open borders. No, it's your interpretation of its racism. Get off your high horse. You're the person who's racist who thinks that anyone who has a problem with illegal immigration. Oh, by the way, you know who has a big problem with illegal immigration? A lot of legal immigrants who happen to be brown people or people that came from other countries that aren't Caucasian. They also have a problem. By the way, those people are as American as me or as anyone else. But we know, according to you, it's all racism.
Unbelievable. So I just posed this question to you. I pose this question to everyone watching, either now or later, on the internet.
That's us, right? Let's see what his question is.
What would you have had the media do over the past 2 years when Donald Trump...
I would have had them report things honestly, not become a mouthpiece for the establishment that they're supposed to be speaking truth against to inform people of, to vet their information and make sure that it was true, to not uncritically report lies and call the president treasonous, to not claim on one hand that Russia was trying to cause division in the United States and Trump was doing it, and on the other hand, take information that was spread from Kremlin agents in a dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton and smear the president under just that, which caused the very division that they were seeking to cause. You know, I would have asked you to be a credible journalist, just like I would any other time in history. But you fail again, just like you did with the Iraq WMDs. You, instead of being critical to the intelligence communities and to the establishment, you bought their information hook, line, and sinker, acted as a mouthpiece for them, and then told the rest of us that we were crazy or terrible people if we dared to question them. Seems reasonable to me, but go on, Joe.
Lied throughout the 2016 campaign about his contacts with Russia. Now, why would Donald Trump lie about Russia?
I don't know. Why would the left lie about that? Why, for example, would the DNC and Hillary's camp lie for over a year about financing the dossier when they knew the dossier was sourced from, drumroll please, Kremlin agents? So in other words, they lied about their contacts with Russians. The problem is, why would the media automatically just start, and the intel agencies start automatically saying, we demand everyone who's ever talked to Donald Trump talk about any Russian they've ever met with? We know for a fact that we saw other people, such as there were DNC people. I think Schumer himself said, no, I didn't meet with any Russians. Oh, yeah, I guess he later found out there was this one dinner I was at that there was a Russian at. That's the kind of things they're talking about, lying with contacts to Russians. So what? People lie all the time. And it's not as if the lies are as cut and dry as Joe's trying to make it sound here, as we'll get to when he talks specifics here in a minute.
Why would the man who was coming in to have the most powerful foreign policy position, the National Security Advisor, General Flynn, why did he lie to the FBI in December about his contacts with Czechoslovakians? Swedes? No, with Russians!
Hey, good sense of humor here with old Joe. It's nice to know that you can still laugh at yourself after you've lied and tried to create conflict and separation and tribalism in the United States for more than 2 years on behalf of a coup that was initiated by Barack Obama's intel agencies. Good to know you can still have a sense of humor there, Joe. Work on your accents a little. And, oh, by the way, it's not that funny. Though I love just how Mika... and then she'll fake laugh at his jokes as will the rest of his panel. Yeah, dude, you're not funny. You suck. And anyways, let's talk about Flynn. Flynn lied to the FBI. That's funny because after the initial... Why did the media lie about Flynn possibly violating the Logan Act? They know that's something that's never prosecuted. They know it's perfectly normal for an incoming national security advisor to talk to his counterparts in foreign countries, even hostile ones like Russia. They know that. Why would the media lie and pretend that was somehow unusual? Why would the intel agencies under Barack Obama then set Flynn up where they said they just wanted to have a brief meeting with him and didn't have his lawyer there? Why would those FBI agents come out of that meeting and say, we didn't think that he lied to us? So what, the FBI agents lied, or they were dumb when they said we didn't think he lied to us? It was only later when Mueller threatened to charge Flynn's kid was going after him, then Flynn said, yeah, okay, I'll plead guilty to what you want. But that's fine. That's fine, Joe. You could whitewash over all that. Because that's what you do. What would we expect you to report on? I mean, the facts? Would we expect you to actually look in the situation of actually what was said? Or do you just read the headline, oh, someone got charged for lying? That's what we expected you to do. Look into the story.
That wasn't even a Russian accent. Somehow the French thing got in there somewhere.
Okay.
Why in January would Mike Pence go on a Sunday show and lie and say, actually, nobody in the Trump campaign ever talked to any Russians during the campaign?
I'd like to see that clip. I'm sure he said for nefarious reasons or something shady like that. What was the question? Has anyone in Trump's campaign ever talked to anyone who is Russian? Or was it a Russian government source, etc.? Like, he's not giving specifics as always. And I don't think Pence lied about this, but whatever, I'd be open to seeing the video, I guess. Anyways, even if that happened, that's not proof of any guilt whatsoever. We have countless examples of people that are Democrats, connected to Hillary, connected to the intel community, etc., lying. So, does that mean they're covering up something as well? Does that mean if he's covering this because he's saying, well, the lies mean we need to cover something, then wouldn't that mean he would cover all these other lies as well? Oh, but they didn't.
Why would he do that? When telling the truth would have been so much easier. Why would the Attorney General of the United States, before becoming Attorney General, lie to members of his own Senate about having contacts with the Russians?
Yeah, Jeff Sessions said he didn't have contacts with Russians, and then it later came out that actually he was at some sort of dinner where there were like dozens upon dozens of people there, and there was someone from Russia was there, and he talked to him in public for like 20 seconds there. That's the big lie that Jeff Sessions told. But I'm sure if we asked, if there was as much scrutiny applied to, like, for example, members of the press or members of Hillary's team, members of the intelligence community, can you tell us if you ever met anyone from, say, Denmark? Met any Danes? And then, of course, if he's like, I don't think so. And we're like, aha, you were at this dinner and this Danish representative was there. Oh, maybe I said hi in the hallway. Well, you lied. That's it, Joe. So we can never trust anything you say. It's so stupid. And everybody knows it. They know it. But, they need to keep the lie going. That's the interesting thing. All this talk of lying, but the biggest liars are him and his media cohorts in the intel community that pushed this crap for 2 years, knowing that it was garbage, trying to foster the very division they're criticizing Russia for trying to foster.
And let me just stop you right here and ask a question. What should the media have done when everybody, it seems, that was close to the president, everybody that I was told were the president's closest advisors in 2016, everybody who I was told flew on the plane with Trump all across America? What was the press to report on when all of these lies were tumbling out of the map?
You could report, let's say that everything he's saying is true. Fine, you report on the lies, but you talk about the situation that's going on beyond the lies, right? So you don't just say there was a lie, therefore Trump's a spy, therefore he's a Russian agent. No, that's not it at all. The fact that they had to answer these questions in the first place was because you and your intel agency allies decided to weaponize the intel agency and start a narrative to try to stop Trump from being president, and then as an excuse to try to interfere in his presidency because Hillary Clinton lost. And so they made up this myth about Russia collusion, that Trump was supposedly colluding with Russia and people connected to him were spies. So they kept saying every day, Russia, 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 contacts with Russia, contacts with Russia, contacts with Russia. And inevitably, there were things that, whether they are intentional lies or they were misremembering things or like that, or they're just exaggerations that the media said were lies, those things came up. Now, we could do the same thing. We could have every day hounded people in the Hillary Clinton campaign for things like Russia, Russia, Russia. In fact, we know, as I'll get to in a moment, that people connected to Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton herself lied during the same tenure, during these same investigations from the time frame of 2016 on. We know the media knows about those lies because I know about them, which means they had access to this information, yet no reporting. Now, what would you have them do? Should they not have reported, especially in the run-up to the election? Remember, before the election, the big story was the Hillary Clinton investigation. Now, was Morning Joe covering that fairly? Were they covering the fact that we knew, for example, at the time that Mills and Abedin both lied to the FBI, saying that they were unaware of Hillary Clinton's server until after her tenure as Secretary of State, but released emails that had been made public showed that, in fact, that was a lie and they knew about them prior to that? Why, if everyone connected to Hillary's lying, if we knew that people connected to Hillary Clinton lied about wanting to preserve evidence, and then actually went onto Reddit, for example, and asked for help on removing a very VIP's name, and then when he couldn't do that, actually deleted subpoenaed evidence, with that crime and that lie, what did we expect the media to do? What did we expect? You know, your job. That's fine. If you wanted to go hard on Trump like you did, then it wouldn't be a problem if you went hard on the other side and on the intel community just as hard as you did on Trump. But instead, you just take things in one way. You report uncritically. That's what the people are upset about. So don't spare me this argument that, oh, it was just the liars. We had to look into this because of the lie. That's fine. You could report on the line, but you don't just assume the underlying truth then where you're operating on behalf of the intel agencies and the establishment Democratic Party, spreading your own lie that you have evidence of collusion like people like Morning Joe had done and their guest.
Of all of these Trump aides. Should we have reported on horse farms in Kentucky? Or done investigations into how maybe eating tree bark would lower our cholesterol? What would you have had us do?
This is, if you had any questions on will the media get better, they feel self-righteous in their lies. You saw some from some of my other videos. The one on Cuomo and Lemon, for example. The one on Rachel Maddow. They're self-righteous. They are indignant that anyone would dare criticize them. They think they did everything right. To them, the job is take Trump down by any means necessary. If that means spreading lies, so be it. They only focus on that. They won't bring anyone from the left or the right or the center, for that matter, that disagrees with this narrative on. That could have showed, how is it that people like me, just some fat guy on a couch, knew that this was most likely a lie, this collusion narrative, but all these journalists got it wrong, that were winning Pulitzer Prize, that are supposed to be, the gold standard of journalism. They all got it wrong. How could that be? How could it be that people like real liberals like Jimmy Dore or Glenn Greenwald or Aaron Mattei, Matt Taibbi, how'd they all get this story right despite hating Trump? They were able to report fairly. They were able to be critical and be investigators that didn't just take things at face value from the establishment Democrats and the intel agency. And they did that without being a stooge of Trump, because they're still reporting, and we hate Trump. So how were they able to do that? No, we couldn't have asked this from the fine folks at Morning Joe. Mika and Joe here couldn't have asked it. What did you want them to do? I mean, like, be legitimate journalists? Actually investigate things? Give both sides of an issue? Just follow the evidence instead of just hashtag resisting Trump? Is that what you wanted them to do? Oh, please. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep doing what we do. Just the sheer arrogance, the sheer lack of self-awareness, they're absolutely disgusting. And I hope they get everything they have coming to them. No one should allow this to slide ever. So let's let them go on with their righteous indignation that people would dare criticize. The noble media that just, they were spreading lies for the good of things. What did you expect them to do? Actually investigate and see if what they were saying was true, please.
I don't just say this to people on the right who have found common cause with conspiracy theorists over Seth Rich or Sandy Hook.
Right, who's he talking about over Sandy Hook? Can you name me, like, the right-wing journalist that said that, for example, when Alex Jones said Sandy Hook might have been a hoax? Can you name me the right-wing journalist that said, yeah, I agree? More lies on his part. Didn't he say if you're lying, you're covering something up? Well, here we go. Another blatant lie, which, of course, is par for the course for him. Of course, that's what a liar would do. Say everyone else is lying, even when proof's on their side, and then continue to spread lies and talk about how bad lies are. Let's just go on.
I'm saying this to established journalists who are wringing their hands and saying this is worse than WMD. Is it really?
Yes, it is worse than that. I assume you were carrying water for the WMD story as well, right? Like, no need to be critical after that debacle either. I mean, you just believed everything the intel agency said and then it was wrong. And you told us, the mainstream media said, we'll never do that again. We'll be critical this time. And then a short 12 years later, not only are they not being critical of the intel community, but they're actually saying things like, to even question them is anti-American. There were plenty of stories going on. For example, I was constantly talking about the biggest story, which was we had Barack Obama use his intel agency to get wiretaps against his presidential rival, Trump's campaign, using opposition research paid for by Hillary Clinton, sourced by Kremlin officials. And what was that research trying to do? Prove that Trump was trying to get dirt on Hillary from Kremlin officials. Do you understand this? Let me break this down for you real quick one more time. Hillary paid for dirt from Russians to prove that Trump was trying to get dirt on Hillary from Russians. And then Obama's intel agency took that unconfirmed dirt that we now know is still unconfirmed to this day and used it to spy on people connected to Trump. The biggest political scandal in the history of the country, which these people at Morning Joe haven't said a darn word about. But they're indignant. What were we supposed to be looking at? And they go after left-wing people now. That's what he's talking about, people on the left. How dare they? Unbelievable. The people that had this story right the entire time, left-wing people, like, again, Jimmy Dore or Aaron Mattei or Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, those people, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. They need to shut their mouth. The ones that were right, that have been telling you for 2 years that you refuse to have on your show to give the counter side of the argument, they need to be ashamed, not you who had the story wrong. Such arrogance.
Is that why George Papadopoulos lied to the FBI, got sent to jail? Is that why the National Security Advisor lied?
Yeah, Paul Manafort.
Yeah, and his campaign manager not only got caught lying to the FBI, but after he was in talking to the FBI, got caught.
Oh, that's funny. Who was Manafort working with when the original lie when he failed to register as a foreign lobbyist? Oh yeah, the Podesta Group. Funny, haven't done much reporting on that. You see how this is selective? Didn't care to report on, for example, when FBI agents said they thought it defined credulity that Hillary Clinton thought that the C on the top of her classified documents was alphabetical order and not a symbol for classified. In other words, Hillary Clinton lied. She must have had a reason to lie. Now, during that time frame leading into the 2016 election, that was before the breathless Trump's a Russian agent threats. Of course, some of that was happening by the media, but that was the big story, at least for a couple days. Should have been much longer than that. Where was the reporting on that? Where was the breathless, Hillary lied for some reason, she's covering something up? So on one hand, they say, we had to report this lie in Russia collusion because we feel that people around Trump were lying. So we basically had to jump to conclusions that Trump or people connected to him were Russian spies. What would you have us do? We have to report because there were lies. But on the other side, when it's everyone around Hillary lying, no need to investigate. It would be inappropriate. We'd call it a witch hunt if people sought to have investigations into that.
Lying again. Donald Trump's second in command, behind Paul Manafort, got caught lying to the FBI. And then when he was...
So is his implication then, before the Mueller report, they weren't breathlessly talking about Trump-Russia collusion? Because he's making it sound like, well, we had to spread the Trump-Russia collusion narrative because all of these people got found guilty of lying. But that's hogwash. They were talking about it before anybody pled guilty. When the FBI agents were leaving their interview with Flynn saying, we don't think that he lied to us, people like Morning Joe were still reporting on Trump-Russia collusion then, based on things like this P dossier. They reported on that then. We now know that dossier was a lie, so they're going, what are we supposed to do when this lie that was spread from Hillary Clinton and was spread by Fusion GPS and was spread by the intel agencies and was spread by Obama's DOJ? They lied repeatedly. So are they going to investigate it? We know people like Brennan and Comey lied. Are they going to investigate them? They must have lied for a reason. Do you see the ridiculousness? And this is what I said would happen from the get-go. The entire idea was to start a witch hunt to get people for any crimes whatsoever so that people like Joe here in the intel community could come out and say, well, some people were found guilty of some crimes, so this proves we are justified in starting the witch hunt in the first place. And I've said many a time, if you gave every politician in Washington the same treatment that you gave Trump, raiding lawyers' offices in the middle of the night, so having them give 40, 50 hours of testimony, and then anytime they make any little mistake, charging them for lying, etc., you would be able to find crimes connected to almost every single politician, or media member for that matter. And they know this. It was all a witch hunt from the get-go. That's what they're intentionally doing. Now they're trying to make it seem like, well, people lied, so you can't blame us for believing and peddling the lie that was Russia collusion. If their argument is, by the way, let's have a little self-awareness here, Joe. If the argument is that we can no longer trust Trump or anyone connected to him because they lied, then why should anyone trust you and the rest of the mainstream media that lied about the Russia collusion narrative?
Delivering his proffer, he got caught lying to the FBI. The man that Donald Trump knew longer than anybody else in politics. You see him on the lower right-hand corner. Yeah, you know, the guy with the Nixon tattoo on his back got caught.
Yeah, admittedly, that Nixon tattoo on your back is kind of embarrassing. Almost embarrassing as being a morning show host on media that's a complete and total liar that pushes Russia collusion, that thinks you're cool because you could play one or two chords on an electric guitar. You know, like Joe Scarborough. Or being his wife that sits there with your Starbucks, thinking you're cool like that. That's I think, a little degrees more embarrassing than anything Roger Stone's done.
Lying to the FBI about what? Bowling? Huh? The best places to get sangria in San Diego? No! The Russians. They lied about the Russians.
Boy, it'd be nice to have a cast of characters that laugh at my stupid jokes as much as Scarborough has, right? Do you see the fallacy he's making there? Well, if someone lied about Russia, then clearly we were justified in spreading lies about Russia. We were justified in being uncritical and saying, clearly this proves that Trump's a Russian agent. Now, I could say the same thing, for example. We know, for example, in the Uranium One scandal, that there were people that were actually convicted of trying to do things like bribery that were from the Russian interest, trying to get the Uranium One. Right? We know that. We also know simultaneously that people that were interested in getting Russia those uranium rights and that knew they had to go through Hillary Clinton's agency, in addition to other agencies, mind you, but still, hers was one of the key agencies they had to go through. We know during that time, people in the pro-Russian side of that were donating money to Hillary Clinton's foundation. We also know that Hillary Clinton's foundation lied because they failed to report those donations in a timely manner. So, was Joe and Mika here? Were they critically investigating that? No, of course not. But they were lying about Russians. Therefore, they're Russian spies. They must be. They must have been peed upon in a bed, and then Russians got that information. That's what happened to Hillary and Bill. We know it. We know that must be the truth. Or not. Just because Hillary lied doesn't mean that she's an agent of Russia. It doesn't mean that whatsoever. It means maybe there's reasons to question it, to look into what was going on. Where did this money come from? But the lie itself that Hillary and them told there, that doesn't mean that I could then jump to the conclusion, she must be a Russian spy. That's exactly what they're doing here. So because some people connected to Trump, or connected to Russia, what you had people trying to say, and you, like I showed in your video with Don Lemon last night, The media is trying to say any connection that anyone that Trump ever had with Russia, whether it be a legitimate business deal, they had a harmless dinner with them, that proves some kind of shadiness. So therefore, they just say Russia, 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 Russia. And if someone says, geez, I don't want this bad publicity by people smearing me as a Russian agent, so I'll just say, no, I didn't have contacts with Russians. Now the fact that they lied proves that they're a Russian agent. So if they would have came forth with the truth and said, yeah, I had dinner with a Russian once, they would have said, oh, sorry, Sessions, you have to recuse yourself. You met a Russian person once, so see you later. And by the way, you must be a Russian agent. And if you say, no, I don't remember it, then that also proves that you're a Russian agent. But it only works one way. All the connections with some of the same Russians that we had from the Hillary Clinton campaign, including people like Veckelsberg, Deripaska, all these other Russians, Veselnitskaya, these Russians that we keep hearing about, the nefarious contacts Trump people had contact with. They all had contacts with people in the Hillary Clinton campaign who weren't forthright and came out immediately with that information. They didn't have the chance to lie, though, because the journalists weren't giving the same scrutiny to them. They weren't constantly saying, who would you contact with Russia? What foreign outsider did you contact? They didn't do that. It was only after it was discovered by people like me or journalists that were actually looking into this that people had to say, oh, okay, yeah, I guess they did have contact with the same Russians.
Nonstop for 2 years. Oh, let's see. Maybe the press, maybe the New York Times, maybe the Washington Post, maybe the Wall Street Journal, maybe they should have just ignored the fact that Don Jr. met with a bunch of Russians who said they were going to give him info, dirt on Hillary, and he said, I love it. Now I can...
Yeah, okay. You did ignore the fact that Hillary Clinton paid a firm to pay a foreign spy to get dirt on Trump from Kremlin agents. You ignored that. Every argument you're making right here why you had to report about Don Jr. is a reason that you should have been reporting about Hillary Clinton. Now, what's the differences in this situation? One, Don Jr. never got any dirt. Second, the very Russian lawyer that Don Jr. was meeting with had dinner and was hiring Fusion GPS both the day before and the day after that meeting. The head of Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson, despite having dinner with his client the day before and the day after the meeting with Trump Tower, claims he had no idea of the meeting of Trump Tower, which is clearly a lie. We know it is. Yet you didn't report on any of that. That's the difference there. That's who Don Jr., who you spent all this time covering, yet somehow you missed those important details of the story. You didn't focus on them very much, did you? So we can see how that connection, Don Jr., didn't have fruition, and that Russian had connections to Hillary and everything else. Converse that to Hillary's connections with Russians, where she's actually successfully did get dirt from Kremlin agents to smear Trump, then took that dirt and had hatchet men like Sidney Blumenthal go and meet people at Obama's DOJ and spread more rumors and more lies until that information got to people like the FBI, who then weaponized that intelligence and then were able to spy on people connected to Trump from it. And all the information, as we now know, is still unconfirmed. Where was the investigation of that? Every reason he's giving for why we had to cover Don Jr., we had to basically say that must prove Russia collusion. But when it came to Hillary having the exact same situation, meeting some of the exact same Russians, and actually getting dirt from Kremlin agents, we didn't have to report on that. That was different totally. So excuse your smug arrogance there. You're not some noble media person that was just following leads. You were selective in what you followed. You refused to have anyone on your show or on your network to discuss the opposite side of the question. You only acted as a mouthpiece for the establishment Democrats. Every single time that there was something you investigated and smeared about people connected to the Trump campaign, the same type of smear and investigation could have happened to someone connected to the Hillary campaign, because they were meeting Russians and getting dirt from them and lying about meeting Russians and lying about having paid for that dirt, etc. But you didn't, which proves that you're a hack and that your righteous indignation here is just horse crap.
Oh, wait a second, I better contact the FBI because that's what everybody else put it on. He said, I love it. Maybe they should have just ignored the fact that the president called everybody around on Air Force One and concocted a lie. Said, let's say it's about adoption. Now, I just ask, what was the media supposed to do at that point? Shrug it off? No, you know the answer. And just because you're sucking up to Donald Trump, and just because power is all that matters to you, and just because you will justify everything that man does, and just because you are corrupt, just because you're not a journalist, just because you have sold your soul to a personality cult, don't knock reporters at the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or the broadcast networks for doing their job right.
So they literally, this is literally where they're at here. They were just proved to have been wrong for 2 years, to have lied for 2 years, and they're literally trying to rewrite history and lying right now, saying we did our job right. What we did was correct. That's the stance he's taking. Also, notice that he says that anyone who was critical of the story must be a Russian stooge. Well, let's speak for myself first. I've criticized all sorts of things Trump's did, even though I do support him. But still, I've criticized him, as have people like Tucker Carlson and others that I've seen like that. But certainly, is he also lumping in Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi in this? People who hate Trump? People that have been out there saying, you fools, you're spreading this collusion theory is leading to tensions escalating with Russia. And when it ultimately blows up in your face, it'll help Trump win re-election in 2020. People that legitimately hate Trump and his policies, they too are Russian stooges? Have you learned nothing? Anyone who believed the truth is now. That's literally what he's saying. If you did the right thing and you didn't accept this collusion lie and you were critical and said, no, wait a minute, there's tons of things not adding up. We haven't seen any proof. The argument that Trump's being favorable to Russia is totally bogus. He's been harsher on Russia than basically any president since Reagan. It's just nothing's adding up here. Can we see proof before we call the president of the United States treasonous? Before we say people are going to be let out in handcuffs? Can we see any sort of proof? Scarborough's saying, if that was you, then clearly you're a Trump stooge. You're not a real journalist. You must be a Kremlin agent, right? That's the kind of McCarthyism that he's dealing with. And just like McCarthy and all the people that just scream communist, communist, communist at everyone, he probably felt justified in doing that, just like Scarborough feels justified. He thinks that he's doing the right thing. He doesn't care that he's a liar. He doesn't care that he fell, or even if he didn't lie, he fell for a lie and pushed it for 2 years, and he supported an attempt at a soft coup by the intelligence agencies under Barack Obama. He doesn't care about any of that because he's good and you're bad, so suck it. You ought to be ashamed that you were right. It's truly some 1984 crap here, right? Mueller proved me wrong, therefore I'm the only one who's right.
They'll continue to do.
Which they will continue to do. So you can keep...
Yes, they should continue to do, because if we don't point out people like you who are so wrong and push lies and act uncritically and only act as a mouthpiece for the powerful people that you're supposed to be speaking truth for, you're going to just keep doing it and you're going to cause more division in this country. So yes, I'm glad that they're going to keep doing it, and I'm glad that people like me are going to keep pointing out just how absurd and how lack of integrity you have, and how much of a liar you are, and how much of a scumbag you are, and how unfunny you are, and how your wife makes stupid faces while she's laughing at your jokes and thinks she's smug and more arrogant and better than everyone who actually had the story right.
Keep lying. You can keep saying your misogynistic statements. You can keep saying that Hispanics are breeders, or they...
You see, have to change. It's always clearly you were critical of this story. You must be a racist and you're a misogynist. You just keep it up. You just keep saying all of it. You're just bad people. Everyone's bad people. I'm a good person. There's people that believe in Russia collusion, even if Mueller said that it's not true. And they're noble, great people that just want diversity and peace and love. And they're the smartest, greatest, happiest, funniest people in the world. And then there's the rest of you that you hate Hispanics and you hate brown people and you're mouth breathers and you're stupid and you're clinging to your guns and your Bibles and you're misogynist and you hate everyone who has any kind of diversity whatsoever. That's what this guy truly believes. It's unbelievable.
Bring diseases to America. You can keep whipping up theories like the Seth Rich theory. That was great for his family, wasn't it? Way to...
Oh, how was the Russia collusion story for Trump's family? Oh, that was okay, though, right? That was perfectly fine. How about Carter Page's family? That was great for his family, right? When you guys were calling him a spy, right? That was great for him. Or Jerome Corsi. How about his family? How about people that were getting raided at gunpoint? How about their families over this? Oh, none of that matters. How about the 81 people that are now trying to be subpoenaed by Schiff? What about their families? The lies you're telling about, they're all connected to Russians in some way. It's great for their families, right? How about the people that you just smeared and maligned, saying that they must be racist or sexist or something if they looked into this? Or that they're crappy people, or they ought to be ashamed for getting this story right and being critical of the story? What about their families? You don't give two hoots about Seth Rich at all.
Go. You're lecturing the Washington Post and the New York Times on journalism. And by the way, if you write for these papers, and there's some people I respect that write for these papers that have actually written columns condemning the media's behavior, be ashamed of yourself. Be ashamed.
I could hold up paper. You ought to be ashamed if you've self-reflected over this. If you said, geez, maybe the media shouldn't be a mouthpiece for the intel agencies. Maybe they should look at things critically before reporting them as truths. Maybe they should report both sides of an issue. You ought to be ashamed of yourself if you thought that. I used to respect you when I thought that you were just a shill and a mouthpiece like me. But if you showed any sort of self-reflection, oh my God, does that mean you're actually concerned in being a real journalist? You're concerned maybe in saying, geez, maybe we should look for things like the truth instead of just being a resistance movement against this president? Oh, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Do you see the arrogance? And there are people that said, maybe the media will change. Do you see the arrogance of these people?
Ashamed of yourself. Were there bad actors? Yeah, and guess what? We know who they are. We won't have them back on our show.
Okay, then call them out. Let's name names. You gonna name names? Who are the bad actors? Oh, we're not gonna do that. Maybe you'd have known they were bad actors if you were looking at the information that they were selling you in the first place. Here's a thought. When you bring on people that were in the CIA and in the intel agencies, and they're telling you that the guy that they hate was somehow connected to Trump, they had proof that it was collusion, people were going to be let out in handcuffs. Maybe you should have took that information with a grain of salt and said, well, what's the proof that you've seen? Not just, yeah, trust us. Okay, we trust you. Does that sound like journalism? A government source, particularly an intel agency source, says, here's the truth, and you just say, okay, we believe you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, there it is. Trump's a spy. That's simple. Especially after, like, the Iraq WMD things. He poo-pooed that earlier, right? All these media people told us, oh, never again. We won't just take the intel community at their word. And now here we have a guy going, you ought to be ashamed if you criticized me for taking the intel people at their word. Would you expect me to do real journalism? Investigate to see if their facts added up, if there was any truth to their story, like people on the left and the right did? Is that what you wanted me to do? That's not our job here at Morning Joe. Please, just like Zucker said, the head of CNN, we're not investigators. We just report the truth as we see it. We're journalists. No, that's not journalism. That's called just reading things uncritically. I could do the same. I could go to Drudge Report and or Mediaite and read the headlines. Sure, no problem. How is it that some joker like me on the internet has a better chance of getting things right than the mainstream media? Because I listened to what they said, and then I listened to the other side of the argument, and I looked at the information underlying it and saw what was most likely to be the truth. I kept an open mind on both sides of it. Unlike them, who only get one side of the story. But they knew what they were doing.
But they're bad actors. Guess what? I got bad news. They're bad actors in your house. And a lot of you that were bitching and moaning last night and being morally self-righteous, you are the bad actor.
You have to love this arrogance. Bitching and moaning, you're the bad guy. You people out there that are upset that the mainstream media is just an arm of the establishment Democrats and the intel agencies and that spread a lie about the President of the United States being treasonous, even though we've said that we know Russia wants to sow division, even though we know a lot of this evidence came from Russian agents and we're helping them sow that division better than they could have ever helped. Despite all that, you're the bad person, bitching and moaning with your moral superiority. Meanwhile, if anyone has some righteous indignation and some moral superiority complex going on, it's this gentleman, isn't it? He thinks just because he can have an angry voice and raise his voice that somehow we're supposed to ignore the fact he lied for 2 years? He was either intentionally lying or, like the rest, this is the only case of the people that have pushed this for 2 years. They're intentionally lying, in which case they're scumbags, or they are the worst ever at their job because they just believe things uncritically without investigating, which isn't any better, pretty much. But he's going to be upset. You're the bad actor. You. Not me. Not Mika. Not the people on my panel here that spread this lie for 2 years. That don't bother to ever give any even lip service to the other side of the argument. We acted like it was a done deal. We told you for a year now that Mueller had the goods. He was going to prosecute people. We told you that Trump and people connected to him colluded and conspired with Russians in illegal ways. And we were wrong, but we're the good guys. You're the bad guys who questioned us.
So save your breath, all right? We're not going to divert our eyes. This president lies more than any other president in the United States.
Proof? Oh, because they say it. That's what it is. You know, how many times you bring up the list of all the bombshells that turned out to be incorrect from places like MSNBC or NBC or CNN or the New York Times or Politico or BuzzFeed. The list goes on and on. But those are the groups that say Trump lies all the time. Go ahead, just check out their fact checkers. They'll tell you. They'll say he lies when he says things like, 1/3 of all the women at the border, illegals, women crossing the border, report being sexually assaulted. They say, actually, that's not true. It was only 32%. So that's a lie. when Trump said 33.333%. That's a lie. It's actually only 32%. That's the kind of stuff they consider lies of Trump. They didn't care about the lies of Obama. Yeah, they don't care about, we actually see the intel agents that they have on their channels talking about how Trump was colluding. That was a lie. We see Brennan saying, maybe I got some bad information. My bad, former head of the CIA that's been telling you for 2 years that Trump's a Russian spy. Oops, I got some misinformation. Anyways, moving on to the next story. They don't care about that lie. They don't care that Brennan lied in front of Congress. They don't care that Clapper lied in front of Congress. They don't care that Comey lied in front of Congress. They don't care about any of that. They're just going to keep this view. Trump's a really bad guy. He lies all the time, so we have to make up stories about Russia collusion. If he lies so much, then report his lies. Those lies don't mean that then he's an agent of Russia. Why don't you report the other side of it? Oh, he lied when we asked him about Russia, so that must mean something shady about Russia. Meanwhile, you all lied and said he's cozying up to Putin. He's doing all these beneficial things to Putin. When any objective observer can see that things like tearing up the INF nuclear treaty, trying to sanction Germany or convince them not to buy Russian oil, becoming a major exporter of oil and natural gas, which really hurt Russia, bombing Syria, selling weapons to the Ukraine. All of these things were far more hawkish moves than anything that Obama ever did. But you don't report any of that. You just lie by, it's a lie of omission. You don't talk about any of that, and you just say Trump's cozying up to Russians. So no, you're not. You will keep doing the same thing, but you're not telling the truth. That's not at all what you're doing.
States he's lied about universal health care. He promised to give it. He didn't give it.
Okay, so Obama. Obama said, you like your doctor, you can keep it. He said people's prices would go down. He said that there would be almost universal coverage. Obama lied about all kinds of things. Those are called policies that you're trying to implement. Sometimes you over-exaggerate and you say, oh, if I get elected, the economy will be booming. Well, then if the economy goes down, does that mean you lied? Well, no, you tried to influence those policies. Now he's going to talk about Mexico paying for the wall, which we all knew, by the way, was him saying that we will strike new trade deals with Mexico that would actually lead to us gaining enough money that would offset the cost of the wall. We know that was going on. But go ahead.
He lied about the wall. He said Mexico was going to pay for it. The Mexicans wouldn't pay for it. Hell, the Republicans wouldn't even pay for it when they owned Washington.
Yeah, you still needed 60 votes in the Senate, which means they would have needed Democrat votes. Joe, who's a career journalist who's been on the Hill for who knows how long, doesn't know this, I guess. And so if that's the case, for example, Obama told us that the Democrats told us they were going to give us the Dreamers. They said they were going to fix healthcare. They said they were going to fix immigration. They said they were going to do things like eliminate terrorism. They said they were going to make the economy much better than it ended up being. They said they were going to fight global warming. They didn't accomplish any of that when they controlled the entirety of Washington. So they all lied. It's just lies. That's why we need to report these lies. Oh, wait, no. We're just going to focus on Trump because I hate him and I'm part of the establishment in the intel community.
We're going to keep talking about that. Tax cuts. He said he was going to help the working man. Then he went down to Mar-a-Lago that night and said to Robert Kraft, I don't know if Jeffrey Epstein was down there, but whoever the hell was around his table down there, he said, I just made you all a lot of money today.
Epstein? Is anyone going to talk about the irony of it was actually Bill Clinton that was flying with Epstein to Lolita Island all the time? Is anyone going to make that claim? No, we're just going to now assume we'll throw Trump's name in there. Yeah, the tax cuts did help the working class as well. The economy, job growth under Trump for the working class is best. For minorities, it's at all-time highs. Job participation's at almost near full employment. Wages are going up for the first time in nearly a decade. People got more money, paid less in taxes, even working class people like me last year. So yeah, that was all truth, and now you're lying about it, so clearly you're covering something up.
No, we're not going to divert our eyes. Damn the torpedoes.
Now, do you understand what he's saying here? He's saying, he's making a black and white choice. Either we never say anything critical of the president, which no one's asking that. In fact, even though I support Trump, I think the job of the press is to be critical of all politicians, particularly the president. There are tons of legitimate things you could complain about him. That's fine. He's saying, so either we never criticize him, or we have to make up lies and say he's a traitor to the United States and an agent of Putin. That's it. That's not what we're asking of you, Joe. We're asking of you to try to be a journalist. When Trump does something that deserves criticism, then criticize. If you think he lies, then criticize him for lying. But you don't push stories for 2 years that he's an agent of Russia uncritically, without following leads to see if those claims are true, without bringing anyone on to counter that narrative. Such a crazy conspiracy theory. He keeps talking about Seth Rich conspiracy theories. He pushed just as crazy of a conspiracy theory, if not worse. What's harder to believe, that Seth Rich, someone who was working for the DNC, may have been killed, may have actually leaked the email information and may have been killed by someone trying to silence him? Okay, that's a conspiracy theory. Or that the President of the United States is an agent of Russia, who has been, it's such a convincing agent that he's basically been doing everything he can to piss Russia off. Which is more of a crazy conspiracy theory. That's the dichotomy that he's trying to set up to people. He's trying to sound like the victim here and trying to say, oh, everyone wants to silence us and say it's unfair to ever criticize Trump. No, that's not what anyone's saying. That's what morons like you are trying to convince people of. So that they say, yeah, we need Joe out there. We need the media out there because Trump's a bad guy and we don't like him. So we need the media out there going after them. And Scarborough says, see, then we did the right thing by lying about collusion for 2 years. No. That's not it. There's a gray area, as you well know.
Full steam ahead. Follow the story where it leads us. David Ignatius.
Full steam ahead. We'll end it on that. Just in case you wondered if there'd be any mea culpas from the media. You think that's good mea culpa there from Joe? Full steam ahead. Bring on the next lie. Imagine the chutzpah it takes to just get caught. Like there's only two ways to look at it. Either he's a terrible journalist and missed the story and just believed people that were lying to him, or he knew it was a lie and was involved in pushing it anyways. I don't care which one at this point. Either way, so you find out, the couple days you find out after that, oh my God, all that story I was pushing for 2 years was a lie. Assuming the best motivation for him, that he was duped, wouldn't you come on and say, oh my goodness, we're going to be more critical from here on out. We're not going to just push stuff. We're actually going to invest. I still don't like Trump. I still think Trump lied a lot. I think he gave us reasons to question his actions. But yeah, we shouldn't have bought this story hook, line, and sinker based merely on that circumstantial claim, those things going on around, without any evidence whatsoever. We shouldn't have just spewed that. We're going to look at things on both sides. We'll bring in people that are investigating both sides of an issue from now on to make sure that we get it right. Instead, he says, full steam ahead. So that's what we have to look forward to. So, yeah, just another great example of a great journalist, a great program there at MSNBC, Morning Joe. They're the victim, as we knew it would be. They didn't do anything wrong. No mea culpas, no apologies, no mention whatsoever in that whole diatribe about, oh, we are wrong about Russia collusion. It's just attack, call anyone who questioned it a stooge for Trump, a dupe, a racist, a misogynist. That's it. That's all they have. Oh, right out of the establishment Democratic playbook, huh? So I'll be putting out more videos where I'm critical of the media, so stay tuned for them. Also, I'll be putting out other videos coming up. I usually do a live stream at Friday, but I won't be able to do one this week because I have work obligations. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Maybe recommend me some other people, and have a good one.